Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, or good morning, I should say. It's been a long, long day. Stayed up late to watch the presidential debate, doing doubles, and want to just thank you all for tuning in and joining us live on social media today. Today, we're going to discuss security and movies in the security guard industry. I'm going to talk a little bit about how real they are, how they're portrayed, and we're going to dive into a few different movies, and one of them will be mine, and then the others we're going to get from our instructors. So we got Michael Ferrari, we've got John Levines, and we got Phil Morales all joining us today. Uh, hey guys, good morning, good morning, good morning.
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 Uh, so good choices here. We're gonna go through them kind of like one by one, and I'm gonna start mine off. But we'll tell you a little bit about what Guardian Group does. Obviously, we do training. We do training for security, for fire safety, for OSHA, CPR, first aid. We do it all, and we train almost every kind of industry. Security guards working in hotels, security guards working in shelters, high-rise office buildings, stadiums, events, nightclubs. We do a lot of training. So today, my name's Charles McNamara, and my movie that I'm going to talk about is going to be something called Contagion. Something called Contagion. Um, Great movie. And why should security watch this film? Well, this was a 2011 film depicting the rapid spread of a deadly virus, ensuing global panic amongst the general public and scientists. And there was a big race for a vaccine. The film explores a lot of different things, social, political, and different ramifications of a pandemic, which we got to see play out not too long ago. So, John, get your thoughts? Contagion, you think it's something could happen, has happened, right? How would we respond to it?
Happened and you know things changed. I mean, everything got shut down, and when they did open it up, everybody had to wear masks and all that. And there's been some ramifications with that. And I know like in the city, they're talking about banning people from wearing masks again. So I, you know, it's real.
Hmm. Phil, same question. What do you think? Contagion. How was that portrayed in the world for security?
You know what? It's been proven in real life and in the movies. Sometimes, the truth is stranger than fiction. We witnessed a lot of things in real life that kind of mirror um, that in the fear mongering sense. Like everything is the fear based influence can have a drastic impact on a mass scale. So I feel like that kind of mirrors reality in a sense.
Sure,
So
absolutely. Um, Michael, what about you? Contagion, great movie. What are your thoughts? How is that tie into the work of security?
Well, it's basically, abiding by the rules, and the regulations when it regarding people staying safe out there and being abreast of what's going on and making sure that they use the requisite precautions
Hmm.
when something like that is rampant. And security,
Sure.
obviously, it's got to be on top of it to make sure that people are abiding by whatever those rules are when it comes to protecting themselves when they're in public.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of showed the fragility of our systems, our banking system, our food supply, our medical system. One of the things, I always probably a really good idea to take part in some kind of basic first aid, um, or a CPR or first aid class, because you never know when a disaster is going to strike. I'm going to kind of go through all of your choices now. We got some really good ones on this one. So first off, John, how are you?
I'm good.
Gross. So John, just tell the folks a little bit about you and your background, and the movie that you selected.
Yeah, I worked for the Department of Probation in the city, in New York City, for 25 years, and I retired. But for many years, I supplemented my income by doing security work. So I had to learn, that kind of on the fly because, as you know, they give you a waiver. So I had to learn the differences between, how I did my regular job and how I did security. So, had to learn a lot. Had to learn a lot of things, Charlie.
Abs- so you chose a good movie. It's actually a trilogy, which
Yeah.
we found out when we were watching. The photo says Glass, but it's Unbreakable, Glass, and Split. Why should security officers watch this film, and how does it relate to security?
Well, I really liked an Unbreakable. Think Bruce Willis, did a great job. But there was a lot of stuff like you saw, like his persona. He kind of felt, maybe a little down because of things that happened, in his past, injury, that you know got him involved in doing that kind of work. But he took his work very seriously when he got there, and because of these kind of like superpowers he had, he was able to you know detect dangerous individuals. And I like to think of it that in a way that sometimes, despite the superpower end, but just when you get a lot of experience, over the years, you start to pick up on people's, cues,
Mhm.
which security officers, you know, can look at. The way sometimes people are walking, they could be concealing, a firearm or whatnot. So you just have to be very, very alert. And he had that really gift
Mhm.
to keep people safe, and he took it very seriously.
I kind of say, like, especially with security guards, after a certain amount of time and a certain amount of experience, kind of seeing the same scenarios presented, they do start to pick up on patterns. And a lot of good alert security guards kind of pick up right away when something is off. Another great thing about that movie, that kind of shows two different sides of the spectrum, right? And sometimes security officers, they kind of just think like, everybody is up to no good. They just kind of get
Right.
a little cynical. But then sometimes you have security guards on the other side who just are oblivious, and there has to be a happy medium in there as well. Um, Great movie. um, Definitely, one that security guards should check out. Um, Phil Morales, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, everybody.
Morning,
Michael, John.
morning,
Phil,
Phil.
tell the people a little bit about you and your background and the movie that you selected. Definitely one of my favorites.
Well, I mean, it's a classic. I mean, when you mentioned like a movie that represents some characteristics when it comes to security, uh, that movie popped into my head immediately. A little bit about me. Yeah, I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I served during Operation Enduring Freedom. I worked on a flight deck on the USS Harry S. Truman during my deployment. Then I worked in security when I got out of the Navy. I worked in security in New York City at multiple different job sites for a company known as Allied Barton back then. And then I got a job with the state. As you well know, I worked for the New York State Office of Mental Health for 8 years, working at a forensic psychiatric hospital. So I could have picked, Glass as well and talked about, working in a psych hospital. But that would have came like second nature to me as well. But now I'm here with Guardian and been instructing since January of this year, and it's great so far. I love it. I'm not looking back. It's awesome. Die Hard is I heard it's a cult classic. You know, is it a Christmas movie? What is it? Is it not a Christmas movie? I don't know. That's the biggest question here. But when it comes to like security in a corporate setting or in a high rise office, like this is like the pinnacle of like, you know, old school characteristics of security that still ring true today, right? Whether it's a building getting hijacked by a terrorist organization or somebody that's, you know, that hasn't been caught yet moving around. You know, it's just a very intricate storyline, and but it shows like a lot of, you know, primary features of like, you know, how like high rise security still works today in a sense, and you know, what goes on with terrorist organizations and hijacking and things like that. It all rings true today still, in my opinion.
I think two scenes that probably pop out right away. In the beginning, obviously, when they walk in, the quarterback is toast. You know, famous line. And they take over the desk, and literally they kind of have control of the entire building from that security guard's desk right there in the lobby. Another really good scene in there, and if you do fire safety, you probably picked up on this as well. When John McClane, you know, pulls the fire alarm, you get the alarms that go off on the fire floor, the floor above, and the floor below, which is 100% accurate with New York City Fire Code. There's so many great scenes in there as well. Is it a Christmas movie? It's going to be the big debate in the comments. I know it, but I'm going to say yes, absolutely. And Michael Ferrari
Hey,
got
good morning. Good morning,
got.
Charles. How are you?
I'm good, and I always say this: you've got to be the most interesting man in the world, a man of many talents, many hats. But tell the people a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, I work for the Federal Aviation Administration. I'm an aviation safety inspector for manufacturing, and pretty much oversee all the companies that are making aircraft and propellers and engines and all the parts thereof that go on aircraft. And I make sure they stay safe and don't do what we've had recently happen with the Boeing company. So a little bit embarrassed about that. I worked for Boeing for 10 years on two separate airplane startups, the 717 and the 787, both of which were in Italy, by the way, where my mom and dad are from. So that was quite an experience. But yeah, I was in the Navy like Phil, 21 years. Started off, you know, right out of high school as an airplane mechanic. My what I was exposed to were those heavy lift helicopters that used to bring Phil all the mail and cargo and engines and whatever they needed on those carriers during the war. So we would follow them around. I'd have two airplanes following that aircraft carrier around the world, pretty much. But you know, I grew up in the Bronx. You know, young boy, and you know, this, you know, was doing and running around, and decided, you know, at one point, hey, I needed to do something with my life. So that's why I picked the movie that I selected.
And you know, I get it, man. You are from the Bronx, and no better movie, right, than The Bronx Tale. Great movie. You know, 1993, still, you know, a great movie to this day. Um, and I know you're gonna sum this up. I'll let you, but you know, for security, this really can tie into a lot of different aspects, right? You got to kind of know who you're getting your information from and who's really looking out for you. Um, Michael Ferrari, why did you choose Bronx Tale?
Oh, first thing is, you know, I immediately related to you know, the actor, you know, they called, his name was Lilo,
Hmm.
but in the movie it's Calogero, or when he was referred to as C. I grew up in those neighborhoods. You know, I that was during my time, and you know, we had a lot of, unfortunately, racial conflict going on. You know, I remember sitting in school. I couldn't go home because there were gang wars going on outside the high school. And you know, in those days they had zip guns, and it was dangerous. I mean,
Hmm.
to go where I lived, you know, by Morris Park Avenue, to go down by Parkchester and Castle Hill Road to go to school because of afraid of getting, you know, of getting hurt
Hmm.
by, you know, we were having gang wars. But the thing is, as growing up, I was hanging around with my next door neighbor who was like Sonny. And that kind of fascinated me. And he would take me around with him. I'm not going to get into what he was doing, but I would go around for the ride. And I kind of got fascinated with that lifestyle of you know, of the mafia and all. And Arthur Avenue, that was the thing. Arthur Avenue in my neighborhood, it was trying to be like like those guys. So I related immediately to that movie. But then I had a father like Robert De Niro, right, who was very strict
Hmm.
with me and was trying to steer me in another direction. And the whole motto of that movie, I know a lot of people don't remember it, but I introduce it a lot in my classes. Is that the thing that came out of that movie to me that stands with me to this day, and I always, always, always discuss it, is the worst thing in life is wasted talent. Because I see a lot of security officers out there, right, that are just spinning their wheels and trying to decide which way they want to go. And be honest with you, a lot of them are just wasting a lot of time, before they really realize, hey, this is a good profession, right? This profession is going to be something that I can build on my whole career. And in fact, it is. And it's the reason why I'm in it, and now I want to share that knowledge
Hmm.
with them to make sure they understand that, hey, security, a lot of times we got a bad reputation
Yes.
about the quality, right? The quality and what security officers represent. And I want to let them understand that, wait a second, this is a very good career to get into, very good career to establish yourself and to build on your skills. So that's why I picked that movie.
Awesome. And guys, great choices with the movies. I showed the photo. The Bronx Tale. I think we can all kind of relate. We kind of sometimes get pulled, from left to right. Um, we have to have kind of someone looking out for us. And I agree with you. The saddest thing in life really is wasted talent. And another thing from that movie in particular, what Cologino says, right? See, you know, in the end, nobody cares, but that's not true. He says people do care, and it's usually your close knit circle, your inner circle. So you got to surround yourself with the right people. Um, I think for myself and for everybody that trains with Guardian, we really enjoy what we do. We're really motivated and we want to like pass along information and knowledge. And I think you guys are right. A lot of times when security is portrayed in movies, one of the first things that always comes up, and I don't like the movie, Paul Blart, Mall Cop, just not my cup of tea, not my thing. And the other one, which is kind of go, with top flight security, right? You always hear those two things first. So, folks who are watching now, drop a comment. Let us know what your favorite movie is relating to security, security guards, or the industry in general. I got a couple of honorable mentions, but one of the second movies that I wanted to bring up as well, which I think is important, especially today's day and age with technology and AI, Eagle Eye. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, folks, go check it out. It's a 2008 movie with Shia LaBeouf. Two strangers, kind of run into each other. It's a good conspiracy movie, but it also talks about, um, which is very accurate, the chain of command with the government. And a lot of individuals don't understand the three branches of government, right? The legislative, the executive, I'm sorry, and judicial and the U.S. Constitution. So, if something were to happen to like the commander in chief, I think everybody kind of knows who takes over, right? The vice president. But what happens, if those people are kind of eliminated or taken off the board, if you will? Um, Technology and AI, we have deep fakes and all this crazy technology, and it's just getting stronger and faster day by day. Great movie. So a couple of honorable mentions. My first one with security in movies, and this kind of goes into law enforcement. I know most of us are military and law enforcement background here, but Serpico. I'll go through each of you guys. John, What do you think, Serpico? Does it relate to security? I feel it does with like integrity and honesty. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that's a great point because when I talk about ethics, just talk about how things when corruption can occur, it doesn't start on a grand scale. You have to be the word grooming, but that's what it is. It's like if somebody wants something from you, that whole pro quid pro whatever.
Yeah.
They're not going to start off by walking up and saying, "Hey, I can give you $500 if you let me in this room for 5 minutes." No, it's going to start with a coffee, a conversation, a slice of pizza, all this nice guy kind of stuff. But the minute you balk, like Serpico did, and said, "Hey, you know what? I just want to do my job, and I don't take money. I don't want to get involved in any of that." Then now all of a sudden he became, the outsider and the threat. Because someone like that, if everybody else is involved in some sort of shenanigans, right? He's the guy that stands back. Now they're worried about, is he going to tell on us?
Yeah.
So it's the same in any profession, but the same thing in security, or just, hey, we'll just mind our own businesses, but that's not the business that we're in.
Yep.
Our business is to mind everything going on. So it's a tough call. People don't like to, they don't like to, tell on anybody. And that was the whole thing with Serpico. Even the police department back in those days, they were like, right, don't go outside, don't go outside of this agency. And when he did, that was it. He was basically a marked man,
And it really did change policing at that time. Late 70s, early 80s to the 90s really, really changed
Yeah.
how cops operated in the city. Totally agree. The next one I have is a great movie, Bodyguard. A while back, Kevin Costner, Whitney Houston, great flick. Kind of falls more into executive protection work in some cases. But Phil, let me get your thoughts. Have you seen Bodyguard, and what do you think? Does it relate to security?
I actually, to be honest with you, I didn't see Bodyguard. I never have.
Ah.
I my apologies. I didn't get that far.
Awesome
into
movie.
The movies, but I got. You know what? Let's make a compiled list of all the movies that we're talking about today, so I can just have a binge day.
I'm gonna have to give you homework now.
Yeah, I'll take it. Whatever, it's fine.
So the good thing about all these movies now, right? Back in the day, years ago, we used to have to go out to this place called a movie theater. Everything is streaming now, and some of you security guards, we know that you watch movies on the job when you're not supposed to. But the Bodyguard talks about, protecting your client, and there's a line that you're not supposed to cross. And when you're in that line of work, executive protection, you can be putting your life on the line. So you really have to know your job. The last honorable mention that I have, great movie, right? Anybody who's worked overnights probably had some of these crazy thoughts. Night at the Museum. Mr. Ferrari, have you seen Night at the Museum?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wouldn't mind doing that myself. To be honest with you, because I love, to this day, love going to the museum. And just to have the whole place to yourself like that, I think it's fantastic. I think that's a wonderful job. I don't know if all those things are shooting out like that, but who knows? I mean, we gotta, but it is. I tell you, that movie, it's just so funny and just so, still for today. I had one guard once was telling me about, he was in a mall, and telling me about, him walking throughout the mall at night. I says, hey, you ought to try a museum. I always tell the guards, these kind of jobs are secrets. I mean, they're really enjoyable. I mean, passing a night walking around to see all that history and culture, I think that's a win-win.
I agree as well. I probably have done overnights a handful of times. I just literally I can't do the overnights anymore. But when I did, I worked actually down by the seaport, which was literally like a ghost town. So you kind of start to think of like all these crazy things, like oh my gosh, pirates could be here, from years past, trying to get in. But I've also worked at a cemetery, which was pretty interesting. Greenwood Cemetery has a lot of history. Battle of Brooklyn. So you get a lot of history about Civil War and the Battle of Brooklyn. I'm all about Brooklyn, but the history there was amazing. Talk about how the British were coming to take our land. We fought them back at the Battle of Brooklyn. Really, really cool stuff. I'm going to kind of go through each instructor. Would love to know what are your thoughts on what you think is the hardest part of being a security officer, and how you overcome those challenges. John, what do you say?
Well, I mean, a lot of the challenges, when even when we talk about, our duties and like some of the legal aspects, you know, to understand that New York State gives a guard slash civilian certain, legal authorities, say when it comes to, arresting somebody or detaining somebody, or, maybe a better word, but you know, they're betwixt and between because they see a crime or something right in front of their face, shoplifting or otherwise, and we'll talk about that a bit. And you know, the store owners have a different, modality there. Well, I haven't, if they can, I have insurance and I don't, I
Mm,
don't want the liability. But now I think they're starting to see a little bit of a change now because this is so rampant that, places go out of business and leave.
mhm.
So I think they're starting to look more at the guards, to be a little bit more, giving them a little more leeway, I guess, to
Sure.
be proactive in, at least trying to get the items back, or it's just going to be a chaos. And in a lot of ways, if they allow the guards to just go according to New York State law, maybe that will cut down on some of the, the lawlessness, right?
Absolutely. I agree. I think, the mantra is always, detect, deter, report. And for a long time, it's just kind of shifted to just report. Don't get involved. Don't worry. Things are insured. But, we're seeing more and more cases. If you watch the news, more security guards now are wearing body cameras. So now they kind of also become a target because they know when people come in who got ill will, man, I got to take out that guard because he's got the camera on him and he's going to see what I do. So he or she now becomes the target of that person. So, yeah, detect, deter, report, but we got to get more into like deterring crime from even happening. Um, so I feel one of the hardest parts in security is individuals have a hard time staying physically fit and mentally fit for the job. A lot of times it can get very boring. You're just, seeing the same people or no activity at all, and you kind of become stagnant, and also become stagnant in your position. Some people want to stay a security guard for years, and that's fine, but some people don't know how to move up and better themselves and make more money and get more certification. So I think being stagnant is a big issue as well. Phil, what are your thoughts? What do you think is the hardest part?
The hardest part about security, well, for one matter, it's the pay, right? Don't they say the money is the motive? I
Hmm.
think that if they start to influx pay a little bit to kind of go towards the climb with inflation to make life a little bit more palatable. There's a lot of money to be made in security, especially with contracts, and there should be some expansion on that for to motivate guards to want to work, to get people to go to interviews, to want them to succeed. I think money is one big motive for a lot of people. It's demotivating as well for some because they figure, oh, I can make a couple dollars less and just fry fries all day at McDonald's. Like, why don't I just do that? Why do I need to get a license? Things like that. Not
Yeah,
just that, but there's a respect factor involved in the sense that, okay, we're private citizens, we're not law enforcement. So even though we look the part in most job sites, still, nevertheless, we're still private citizens. So it's kind of like a thin line that you got to like tether when it comes to doing your job and making sure that you're safe while you're doing your job, especially in this day and age and what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I can't tell you how many times people wouldn't show up for interviews. You'd have a job lined up, pays good money, 25, $30 an hour, and people wouldn't show up. And sometimes it is that respect thing where you may have to deal with difficult people. And sometimes people are just mad. They're not mad at you, the security guard. They're just mad at a situation. And we kind of have to give them options and kind of let them figure it out. At the end of the day, we are there to enforce, rules and regulations of the building, and that can be tough. Um, you know, John talked about this earlier, detect, deterrent reporting. Um, Sometimes people don't give the security guards the respect they deserve, and
Yeah.
guard companies need to remember, it is a paramilitary force in the industry sometimes, but they're not soldiers. They're human beings, and we got to treat these security guards as such, right? They have feelings, and they have to be cared for, and want to be part of that team and part of the property that they protect. They got to be invested in there. And we're going to wrap this up. Last question, same question. Mr. Ferrari, what do you think is the hardest part?
I think the hardest part is learning how to effectively de-escalate and being, sensitive to diversity that's out there. A lot of security guards struggle, and what you said, a lot of them with a thing called emotional intelligence, right? You got to know where you're at 1st.
Mhm.
Right? You got to turn everything else off, and that's hard to do. Like what Phil said, with pay and struggles you got at home, and all the gorillas you got on your back. That's hard to turn off and go in there and dedicate yourself. And then you got people out there that are just, arrogant and belligerent, and they don't care, and they treat them poorly. They treat security guards poorly sometimes, and then the security guard, when he's got somebody like that that's angry, a lot of them, forget, and I kind of stress a lot about verbal judo. I impress upon them to learn as much as they can about verbal judo, and how to kind of deflect, and so yeah, that's, to me, I see as the hardest thing. It's just a lot of them don't know how to effectively handle a situation and de-escalate it so it doesn't get out of hand.
Hmm. I agree. They call it the OODA loop, where you're just going to run around in that circle. And I've fallen victim to that hundreds of times over, because when I first started, didn't know how to disengage. If we're, getting in that conversation, we have to know when it's time to like disengage. So for the folks out there, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you are looking to register for any of our classes, and we have so many now, if you're looking to get your security guard license, we got a package for you. If you need to renew your security guard license, we can do that too. If you're looking to upgrade your skills, get your fire guard license, your FLSD or your F80, or a CPR or a first aid, whatever floats your boat, we have a training class for you. We also do some in-person training now as well. We do self-defense, we do the concealed carry, and now we also do the armed guard training. You can register on our website or scan that little QR code that is at the bottom if you're into those QR codes. I really just want to thank you guys for jumping in. I know I've been bugging you all week long, right? But I feel it's important because we represent um, a lot of individuals, come to us for training, and we want to make sure they get quality training in security or construction or first aid, fire safety. And I think all of us here train in all of those aspects. So, John, thank you very much. Phil, thank you. Michael, you
Thank
guys
you.
rock.
Thank
Um,
you.
that's it. Listen, we all got to go back to work. We got to sneak away for a little bit. Um, I just want to thank you. And for the folks watching live now, drop a comment. Let us know your favorite movie in security, and why you chose it, why it resonates with you. And let us know your thoughts of what you think is the hardest part of being a security officer. Folks, stay safe, stay alert, stay alive.
Thank